Good afternoon. Welcome back to hashtag Triple P Top 10 Tips for Teens Tuesdays. Last tip and I nailed it. So today is tip number 10 and Penny and Amanda here. And tip number 10 is to be a safe sounding board, which basically is what it says. You want to create an environment that invites your teen to share with you. You know, they're dealing with hormone changes and intense emotions. You know, that feeling like when you're going, it's not the end of the world, and they're going, oh, I disagree. It most definitely could be the end of the world. So they don't see things the same way that we do. They just don't. They know where their brain's at, where their emotions are at. And some days they seem like reasonable, mature, and other days they're not. And so that's, as a parent, where it can be really difficult, is that constant seesawing back and forth. And deep breath. We welcome all of the feelings here. So you're going to have to work on your own regulation skills in this tip, because yeah, really it's about bringing yourself to the spot where you can sort of teach them how to welcome those emotions in, because when we welcome them in, then they can dissipate. And whatever it takes for them to work through them. So maybe they need to rage and vent at you. Maybe they need to cry. Maybe they need to, you know, do jumping jacks or shadow box. Maybe they even need to, you know, yell, or I don't know, you know, profanity is everybody's choice, but there's all different ways that you can encourage within your own boundaries that expression of the energy and motion, right? It's letting that out. It's not the time for teachable moments. The only thing you're teaching them in that moment is with your own behavior of self-regulation. So you're teaching them that I can keep my own emotions in check to allow a safe place for someone else to vent. And part of that, and I mean, I think emotions result from that, is that they're trying to find their place in the world. And we talked a little bit about this in tip number 9, about they're emerging adults. They're figuring out, who am I separate from my role in my family? Or they're figuring out, how am I that and this at the same time? How am I melding all of these aspects of these things that I'm experiencing into this person? And how do I, and we want to encourage that. We want them to become their own person, to be able to think for themselves and act for themselves. And, you know, those risk assessment skills we've talked about, all of that's coming so that when they are free and going, we can feel somewhat comfortable that they've got those essential skills to make decisions and move ahead and thrive as an adult, you know, mostly without us. But that's the beautiful part of all of this stuff we've been doing, is we've been building connections so they will want to return to us and talk to us still, as for always, right? So Amanda said this before, can't say this enough. Listen more, talk less. You need to ask clarifying questions, or, you know, some kids are really good. Some kids need a little prompting, you know. Males sometimes, you know, need some encouragement, you know, little phrases like, you know, say more about that. Tell me more. I'd like to understand. I don't quite get that. But really, if they can do it themselves, you just have to, and it doesn't hurt to add your own observations if they're struggling. So I noticed that when you come home from football practice, you know, you are really angry, or can you tell me more about what's going on there? Or sometimes they might need that opening to share with you. Think about your own experience as a teenager, because I think most of us can recall some of those really tender years. And I've heard a few people in my lifetime say that they loved middle school and high school, but predominantly not most of the people, because it is such a really hard time. And most of the people that liked high school or middle school had a person who was supporting them through that. Because yeah, it's tough for everybody. Keep in mind their developmental stage, that, you know, what they're capable of doing, you know, what they need, what they want. Because, you know, their brain isn't fully developed yet, so they still do need some guidance. And it's up to you to sort of walk that tricky line and understand what they're capable of so your expectations stay reasonable, both for yourself and for them. So yeah, Amanda, what can you add to that?
I was just going to say, it's not a coincidence that number 10 is Be a Safe Sounding Board, right? Triple P's programs are very much about building those connections with our kids. As parents, we're in the driver's seat. How do we go about doing that? Giving the tools. And so I was just looking over the list again. Number 1, set a good example, right? And then we get to number 10, being that sounding board. And through the whole process, we've really talked about building that relationship and continuing to keep those relationships with our teenagers, because it is a tough time sometimes for us to do that with our teens, right? Because there's so much going on. Picking our battles, asking them how they feel, right? Timing, learning a new language, like teaching that risk evaluation, staying in touch, involving them in decisions, you know, encouraging extracurricular activities. These are the things that as teenagers, these are part of their basic needs, right? They need all of these things in order to, you know, grow up with skills, to contribute, right? To not only the family, but to the world and to our communities and all of those things. So what a great group of top 10 tips that Triple P has provided for us.
Yes, and that was a great summary. And I think that's super important to point out, that you'll notice that there is nothing in here about sort of so much about directing their behavior or consequences, or at this point in their life, one of your strongest parenting tools is your influence, and your influence is directly related to how attached and connected they are to you. So if your relationship is frayed, the cooperation on their behalf will be dramatically reduced. And so that's why they focus on relationship, building that back up. And then you have that opportunity to invite their cooperation, because at this point, it's pretty hard to pick them up and put them in a timeout.
Yes,
So
for sure. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, everybody. There's lots of feedback all of a sudden, but yeah. So just figuring it out, right? What works for your family, what doesn't. And you know what? We've plugged the website lots, which is important for us to get to families. But also there's many of us who are trained in Triple P courses. And so there's a whole array of different courses, from, you know, tip sheets on certain topics, to group discussions with other parents going through similar things, to one-on-one programming, to help parents kind of get their ground, right? Build those skills in them. But the parents are in the driver's seat this whole time, right? Right from, you know, newborn to 18 plus, right? The parents are in the driver's seat, but how we go about doing that is important. It's just like teaching the kids how to drive. Patience, understanding, right? Compromise, compassion, empathy, all of these tips, and all Triple P programs are dedicated to that as well. So I feel like this has been a really great summary of the top 10 tips.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the end of the top 10 tips for teens segment. Thanks for watching, and we hope that you got something out of this. And as always, www.fcss for more information on upcoming programs Amanda and I are going to be involved in. So thanks, everyone. Take care.